Happy Sabbath, everyone. Good to see you, Cerritos family. Good to have you all. You all did a good job living out this past week. On last Wednesday, I believe, I texted Josh for Joshua Lee for checking out if he's alive because I was a little worried about him living his life alone. But Joshua replied me on this morning saying he was alive, but he couldn't wait more for Sabbath. So if Joshua you're there, thanks for coming, and it is your day of Sabbath. So take a full rest, and thanks for coming out for worship, being our Lord. It is Genesis 24th time of studying Genesis, and we are going to look at Genesis chapter 31. Genesis chapter 31. All right. So for this whole chapter, it is pretty long. It's pretty long. So I wouldn't ask you to read it out all together as a group, but I would rather give you 5 minutes to stop it here and individually go through the chapter 31 and what it really talks about and what is the main issue, what is the main topic that we are going to talk about today, since it might be almost the last time we are studying about the life of a Jacob. Okay, so stop it here and go through and then come back. I hope you're done reading. It's chapter 31. And then we are going to start talking about today's topic. All right, the first verse, the beginning verse I want to bring out today is actually verse 2. It says, Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. I was trying to find out some nice pictures about interpersonal relational crisis or relationship problems, but all the pictures that were pulled out on Google was the couple or marriage crisis. It seems like a lot of people are needing a counseling in their relationships. But it's not about the marriage counseling or about the couple's relational problem. It's more about the interpersonal, the people throughout the people, the relationship problems. Chapter 31 begins with a pathetic word, again, saying Jacob noticed something wrong with Laban's attitude toward him that was not like before. It's pretty pathetic because all these years, Jacob had been giving out his everything for the house of Laban. And now what he's getting from Laban's household was nunchi. Like he was getting a little bit of an offense. So Jacob noticed something wrong, sensing something wrong that has changed with their attitude. And the problem was the relationship issues, because Jacob was trying to get more of the finances or more of the lambs or the sheep from Laban's household. They were sensing that, so the relationship goes wrong and wrong, just like how we mentioned from last week. And there is always no if from the history, but what if? Let's just assume, like, what if the relationship between Jacob and Laban was okay, we're good? Jacob didn't really have to flee from the household of Laban, and Laban didn't really have to chase for Jacob, right? And all this happens because of a relational problem. We all get the nunchi, or all get the like atmosphere or mood that when we read wrong, there's always problem arises. Or even sometimes when we are not doing anything wrong, when we're living a perfect life, perfect kind life, sometimes some people, some jealousy people, they just comes up to us and start spreading the rumors or start backtalking about us. So even though how perfect a life we get to live, there's always some kind of relational problems that we get to have. When we come back to Bible and think about like which books talks most about the relationships, I would pick one book, and that is Psalms, Book of Psalms. Especially the writer of a psalm, David, he gets to experience a lot of possible scenarios throughout his life. He was an absolute like nice person, was an amazing person, and the one of the clue was that the amazing army or amazing warriors that were willing to give out their own life for the king David. right? That was one of the clue, and we still hear that King David, was one of the nicest king that was written in Israel history. However, on the other hand, even the perfect person has their own flaws. There was King Saul who hated King David. And there was also the first son, Absalom, for trying to kill his own dad. And it didn't really matter how perfect king the David was. There always was a relationship problem or crisis that was taking place in his life as well. It does seem like every one of us tonight are facing the crisis or problems or little issues in a relationship. We all do, because we are interpersonal human beings. We get to experience some kind of attention or some kind of little issues that we always face with, within the church or within the school or within our workplace. We always get to. And I want to dig in tonight, especially on those problems, because we would get to have we would want to try on what Bible tells us about the relationship problems and how we should try to be, you know. So I would invite us to go to Psalm chapter 3, especially I talked about Psalms, about how King David is trying to flee away from Absalom, his own son, right? Psalms chapter 3, from verse 1 to the end of chapter, right? Psalms chapter 3, it says, Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver me. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. So I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, and deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessings be on your people. When you get to read it out, the chapter 3, you get to see some of the parts that that King David was trying to write from his own obstacles. And you can tell that he is not really being active on taking his revenge, right? He's rather a little more passive than being active on what he can do for his opponent, because he's writing down his own obstacles that says like, oh, everyone is trying to attack me. There are so many enemies in my life, and it is only you, the Lord, sustains me. So I will not fear from every enemies, but Lord, please deliver me. So do everything you can do for my life. So he's basically passing his own revenge to the Lord, not himself doing it. And you get to see most of the chapters from Psalm, they always go like this. It always says, oh, David is pretty misery. He is sad about his situation, but he's asking or inviting God to do the revenge for himself. And there are rare times that David was taking a revenge directly and individually by himself. Well, think about the examples from King Saul, that he had a perfect opportunity to kill the King Saul from what, I lost the word, from the 동굴, from the 동굴. And he chose not to kill King Saul, and he was really sad when, after years, the King Saul and his good friend Jonathan passed away in the battlefield. King David, he really got to cry for the death of King Saul. Thinking about the example from his own son Absalom also, when he was trying to flee from his own son, when his own son is having a coup against his own father, it was not that sad. It was just sad about his situation. But when his own son got killed into the battle again for taking the throne again, King David really did cry, which is not the normal reaction you would have as a king who just got rethroned. So the life of David, he did go through every possible scenario regarding the relationships. Some people were willing to die for him. Some people tried to kill him. His life was pretty misery, and his life had a lot of opponents. But David had a mindset of loving the other opponents. And when you get to see this, you really get to ask, well, what is the real lesson that we get to have today when we are facing the interpersonal relational crisis? Like, what is Bible trying to teach us, or how should it deal with it? When we go to Romans chapter 12, verse 18 to 21st, it says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. But, I just put but here, but if that does not happen, or if that's not doable, do not take revenge. My dear friend, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, not your own head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. It is pretty clear what the Bible is inviting us to do. They invite us when you're facing a crisis in a relationship. Do not ever take a revenge, but just be kind. It is actually the exact opposite of how world is teaching us today. The worldly counseling is actually asking us or giving us the advice, like when you're facing a problem, you got to confront, you got to ask for your own rights, and for the hurts, for any of the trauma you're getting, you have to heal by yourself. So don't try to be kind, don't be naive, try to act up for your own profit. And these two teachings, one from the world and one from the Bible, that's just asking us to be kind, to be naive, and to give out everything. What should you choose tonight? Or what is the right remedy for us tonight? And the other day, I was actually reading a great book regarding Jesus and Peter having a conversation about how many times that they were willing to forgive. For the background information, it was 3 times max to forgive someone in Jewish tradition. So when Peter was asking God or asking Jesus, oh, is 7 times enough for me to forgive? That was like Peter giving a lot of room to improve himself as a Christian. If I'm a Christian, maybe 7 times when the world is asking me 3 times. And we all know how Jesus was telling him back, oh, no 7 times. That's not enough. You got to go for 7 times 70, which is 490 times, right? This doesn't really hit me that hard, thinking about just forgiving 490 times. But he also, the writer, writes a great information, write a great parable example for this. Imagine you're just standing out alone in the parking lot, right? It's a public parking lot, and you have your own car parked, and you're standing alone and talking to someone on the phone. And you see some random car just racing down to your own car and starts hitting your car. Just one time, you witnessed it, right? So you're about to just hang up the phone call and about to call to your own insurance, and then the car backs up and they start hitting 2nd time, 3rd time, 4th time, up to the 7th times. What would your reaction be? That'd be crazy. And imagine Jesus asking you to endure that, to bear the situation for 490 times for that car hitting your own car. Your car is going to be out of the world, is not going to exist anymore. Can you bear the situation? Well, I can't. Well, I can't. Is I'm not gonna stand there alone, just looking at him, trying to get my car, get rid of it. Like, I can't bear that. But still, Bible is telling us, even in those situations, you gotta bear it. You gotta try to forgive him, and do not ever take revenge. Asking God for the revenge. Well, okay, okay, we'll take that. We'll ask God. So you be the jury, you be the judge, you do everything. So you take a revenge on me, for myself. You get to send him a jail. You get to compensate. You get to pay me back from the insurance. You do everything for the situation. But what are you gonna do with my anger issue? Looking at is not only about material fight, or not only about the surface level of a fight or crisis, but there's always a crisis that's happening, even in the relationship, that has a deep impact on myself and on my mind. And God, how are you going to deal with that? Let's try to solve this situation with a Christian way. When we look at the Bible, or when we just look at ourselves on our daily basis as a Christian, when human beings, when are desperate, when it seems like there's no hope anymore, they always get to pray. They choose to pray. And especially as Christians, we have a great option when the situation goes wrong, when the interpersonal crisis goes wrong. We always have one and only but great option to pray. Let's get back to the situation of David's life. When David's life was hitting the roof, his success was high up there, he didn't really get to pray. And his relationship with God, his spirituality was going downhill. But when his life was getting messed up, he chose to pray more and even harder. All of the chapters from Psalms is about David praying to God. So the math is pretty simple for me. When there's one hardship, you get to pray one time. But when there's 7 times of a hardship crisis, well, as a Christian, you get to pray 7 times more. And when there is 90 times of crisis that are taking place in my life, no matter what it is, no matter if it is a interpersonal relationship problem, no matter how it is a career problem, my workspace problem, my family problem, if it is 490 times, we get to pray 490 times. And my relationship with God will be so much closer and so much better than back in the days. If that is the case, if that is the math, is crisis really a crisis anymore? Is hardship that's taking place still a hardship? If I get to pray more, if I get to ask more of his help, then that's something to rejoice, something to feel happy about. Let's think about this seriously. If I really get to have a problem, serious problem happening in my life, and there's nothing else I can do, and I get to write my own psalm about it, is the suffer or a trial that has been allowed by God is really beneficial for me, or is it minus for me? I really want us to remember tonight that whenever the problem arises, something to rejoice about. Even though it sounds nonsense, we get to have more chance to pray about. We get to be clingy on God. We get to ask more about help. And if that's the case, honestly, We can let 100 times, 1,000 times of real hardship to take place. Because as Christians, our objective, our goal should not be a success of this life, but a success of building a healthy and good relationship with God Jehovah, so that we can be used to the heavenly life that we are going to live when he comes again. So let us rejoice. When the problems arises, let us rejoice for him giving us chance to pray more. Let's say the problem with me and my God resolves that way. But let's come back to me and the other party's problem. Yes, my relationship has been better when the problem occurs. Then how about the other party? How are we going to deal with them? Do we really want, as Christians, to send them to the jail? Or get at least some of the profit or some of the payback from them? Let's go to Luke chapter 17, verse 4. It says, even if they sin against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times come back to you saying, I repent, you must forgive them. I'm sorry for Bible being too much clear on our relationship problems, or even every problems in our life. We sometimes want Bible to at least tell us, oh, you got to seek for your own profit. No, Bible never tells us that way. Bible is pretty clear on this issue. You must. It's not even should. It's must. You must forgive them. And he orders us, it commands us to love each other. Thinking back about the essence of Peter asking Jesus, is 7 times enough to forgive? The underlying thought about forgiving 7 times was really, when can I start paying back my revenge? When can I stop loving him? But when Jesus was inviting Peter to forgive 490 times, he was not asking him to count the numbers. He was rather asking Peter, hey, Peter, don't try to count the numbers of your forgiveness. Start trying to love him more. Don't try to ask me, when can you stop loving him? Try asking me how much that you can love him more. He's inviting us tonight to love the other party. Might sound too plain, but it is the biblical truth that he's inviting us to love more in a relational crisis. And finally, he is going to let us have a freedom from the crisis. Because coming back to the story of Jacob and Laban, Jacob, even though he did have some problems with Laban, when Laban comes back, chases back to revenge, God actually intervenes within the problem, within the relationship, asking Laban, do not ever attack Jacob anymore. He really does solve the issue. And later on, that was the last time that Jacob gets to face Laban. He really gets freedom of the crisis. So tonight, I ask you, are you really not having any of the problems in your life? It could be interpersonal. It could be marriage. It could be friends. Sometimes your best friends are best in attacking you. And when that happens, how do we react? And how does God is inviting us to react? If you have a pretty clear answers from tonight, I invite us and I want us to pray for the courage to do so. You really did a good job for living past week. 5 days, 6 days might have been too harsh for you, too hard for you. And that is the reason why I welcome you today. Thanks for living your life hard. And it is the best time for you to get a full rest and full cover. Also, have a better discussion, have a better relationship, and have a better rest within this church. And so when you go back to your own life after Sabbath, let us bring that happiness and joy into our society and to my life. Thank you for coming again. It was our Servitors worship, and I invite you to have a further discussion, a better discussion afterwards. Thank you again, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.